Hello, indie authors. Today on Indie Author Blueprint, we're going to be talking about royalties. Now, looking at the financial aspect of this and also how it affects you legally is really important because it directly impacts your earnings and your long-term publishing relationships. We'll look at it a little bit with traditional, just so you understand the difference, but we're going to look at specifically how it affects you as a self-publisher. So many indie authors are not familiar with the nuances of how royalties work, and they don't understand the implications of maybe some of the agreements that they will sign, which we will be covering contracts in the next episode and agreements, but they don't understand how that impacts their royalties. And so if you don't understand royalties, you don't know how to read a contract. And we're going to be talking about contracts in light of some of the different people you sign to help you get your book published. And maybe you're using a platform that requires one. But that's not today. Today we're talking about royalties. So we're looking at how you can make informed decisions and then optimize your publishing efforts because you're running a business. Remember from some earlier episodes, you really want to make sure that you have profits from your business. And even if you're running as a ministry, if you're somebody who says, well, I'm publishing Christian books and it's okay, I want it to be a ministry. Well, you still have overhead and you have a bottom line. And so even if you're breaking even and not taking a paycheck, it's really important to know how you're spending your money. So what are royalties? Well, royalties are the earnings that you as an author receive from the sale of your books. The structure and the rates of royalties can vary depending on the publishing platform, the format, and the distribution method. And so we're going to look at a breakdown of how royalties typically work. Let's first give a really brief overview of what happens with traditional publishing, which is also called royalty publishing sometimes. This is where you are not spending any money to get your book published. You might have an agent, you might not have an agent, but you have gone with a traditional publishing company that you submit the manuscript, they pay for everything, and you're required to market your book, but you are not paying for the publishing process. That's traditional publishing. And how that works then is because they are paying for the cost of the publishing. They might give you a small advance just for the work that you're doing on your book, but then you have an agent's fee. There's distribution, there's marketing. They pay their editors. They hire people who design your cover and who do the interior and all those things. And so when they're paying for that, that costs them a lot of money. You don't earn royalty checks then until you sell enough to earn out the cost of publishing that book. They've invested a lot. They have to earn back their investment. They also want to make a profit. So you don't start getting checks for the sales of your books until they've basically paid off this debt. Let's just think of it like a debt that they have published your book. So that's how it works in traditional publishing, the oversimplified version of it. Now, how does it work in self-publishing? It is different because you are the one who's investing the money. You're the one who's taking the risk on yourself, whatever you invest. So let's imagine that we think of it kind of similarly to this in that, let's say it costs you $3,000 between hiring somebody to edit your book, hiring a cover designer, hiring somebody to coach you, taking a class, getting the software you need, whatever you have to spend. A lot of times it's hiring a person to do the work that that publisher would be hiring. They're probably spending more like $10,000 or more because they're going through multiple rounds of edits and all of that. But let's say you choose the simplest version you can, and let's say you spent $3,000. You yourself would want to figure out how many books would I have to sell to earn that back because you've made an investment in yourself as a writer. The difference is that the royalty comes directly to you. So in a traditional model, you're getting what's left after the publisher gets something, after your agent and the distributor and the marketing and all those people get something. You might get $1 for your book for every book that you sell when you do start getting those checks. When you're self-publishing, you get whatever's left after the printing cost and after Amazon or your distributor gets their cut of it, but you get what's left, and it might be more like $5, $6, $10 per book, depending on how you've priced your cover, the cover price. So it's different in that you get the royalty and you get more of it, and you don't necessarily have as many middlemen in there. So when you're getting the royalty, especially if you're going with something like Amazon KDP or Ingram Spark, because you are not paying for the platform, the really minimal fee on Ingram Spark to publish your book if you need to do edits after you've released it or something like that. But there's no actual fee for the platform, really. So essentially, the fee is for their distribution, getting it out there. They get a piece of your pie. And then for the cost of printing the book and then shipping it out to your customers. So what you get on different platforms is based on factors like the book's cover price, the format, because color printing costs more on print on demand, and hardcover costs more. And so you have to look at that factor. Now, let's just say for a second here that you went with a self-publishing company. You didn't want to have to find your own editor. You didn't want to have to find the designer. So you paid a company that $3,000 to get your book out there. Well, some of them actually have a system where you get a royalty and they still keep a portion. Like they kind of split this kind of a hybrid where they say, well, it actually costs us this much to publish your book. We're going to ask you to pay a certain amount of that. And then the rest, we're going to earn back as you sell your book until you get to a certain point. So this is why you have to understand what program and plan you're under, because you have to know how much of a debt do I have on this. So let's look at it if you are somebody who's publishing on KDP or you're using Ingram Spark or something like that where there is no middle person and you're the person doing the uploading and you're the person who's directly managing everything. So let's first look at an ebook. It's pretty simple when you look at an ebook. And something like Amazon KDP, you earn royalties based on the price that you set for your ebook. And Amazon says, we don't want your book to be too cheap or too expensive. And so if you stay in this range, we'll give you more of a royalty. Now, if you want your book to be 99 cents all the time or free all the time, or you want your book to be priced above $99.99, then you're going to get a smaller royalty. So they say, okay, we'll give you 70% if your book is priced between $2.99 and $9.99. And if it's outside of that range, or it's sold in different countries, then you get 35%. So if you want to sell it for 99 cents, you only get 35%. That's because if you sold your book for 99 cents, Amazon's not going to only want to keep 30 cents of that. So that's why your book is just not earning them enough money. So you only get 35% because they need to have a bottom line too. That's how it works. Okay, now let's think about print books. Royalties for print books are lower because there's a different cost on how it's distributed. There's a process, like with an ebook, somebody can buy it, click, and then download it, and it's on their computer or on their device like right then. When it's a print book, there's a process. It has to be printed on demand. It has to be packaged and shipped, and it goes out to your customer. So it's important to remember that these people have jobs. They actually have to get paid for doing that work. And so the way it works with print books is generally you get 60% of the book's price minus printing. So how it works is Amazon will keep 40% off the top. That goes for the shipping your book out and the labor that they're doing on getting that book out. Now, you would get 60%, except you don't get to keep all of that. You actually have to subtract the printing cost. Now, that might be $3.50 for your book, but you take that off as well. And so you get what's left. That generally comes out to be about 40% of the cover price, give or take, depends on how you set it up. Here's how it works for me on mine. If I have a book that's selling for about $15.99, Amazon's going to keep their portion of it. And then there's a printing cost of around $3.50. And then I end up with around $5 or $6 in royalties on that, depending on where my cover price is and how much it costs to print it. So I have mine priced that way specifically. I just want to make sure I'm earning at least $5 on a print book, but sometimes it's more than that. And so the actual way that this breaks down is really easy to do with the calculators that they have on KDP or on Ingram Spark. If you're using that, you can put in the page count of your book, the kind of paper, the cover, whether it's paperback, hardcover, all of that, And then you can do this little calculator, and it's going to tell you what your royalty is after that. That's very helpful because then you know how to plan. Because if that royalty comes out to be $1, you're going to need to change your cover price. Some people compare and they're like, well, I want my cover price to be $9.99 because that's what the books are in the bookstore. Well, it doesn't work that way with print on demand. You're not ordering 10,000 copies printed overseas. And so in order to make a profit, you're going to have to bump yours up to a place where you will earn enough royalties. Now, there are royalties on things like audiobooks as well. And this can vary. It really depends on the platform you're using. Some of them give you 40%. Some of them establish, like they actually go by the length of your book and say, here's how much you're going to be able to earn. So I know like when I did an audiobook and published it through Audible, I didn't get to pick the price. I submitted it and they said, this is what the price is. And a lot of their people get those through memberships. And so they're not actually purchasing. They can, but most people are not actually purchasing it at the cover price of the audiobook. And then there are production costs in that. I recorded my own with special software and went through a whole production process to get it to their standard. And I published it through Audible, which is ACX, the letters ACX. And this program that I chose is one where if you exclusively go with them, you get a higher royalty. But it's locked in with Amazon, which is Audible, for a while. And so I had to really weigh that out. Those are some of the things where I'm saying contracts. We have to really think about, well, do I want to distribute this through Apple Books? I don't want to be stuck. So that's all part of the royalty, is thinking like, how long am I locked in to get this royalty? If I back up to ebooks a little bit too, there are some other options that come up. And one of those is Kindle Unlimited, and I'm going to get into that in a second. So if you think I skipped over that, I will come back to that. Now, with royalty payments, those are typically made on a monthly basis with like KDP or Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark's kind of random for me, but that's because I don't sell as many books on there. And so I might have months where I didn't actually sell any books on Ingram Spark, or they have a minimum threshold where they're not going to issue you a check till you've earned $10 or something like that. It actually goes directly into my bank account. When you set up your Amazon KDP account, you link up your bank account and you get this direct deposit, and the same with Ingram Spark. Now with Amazon KDP, I do earn money. I sell enough books every month that I do earn royalties, and they go directly into my account, and they take a little time for them to show up. So like, let's say the month ends right now, and I don't just get that money immediately a week later. It actually is in the month after that. And so there's a little waiting period. So the very first time you publish a book, if you publish it in the middle of the month, it's going to be almost 2 months before you see your first royalties deposited. You can log in at any time and see what your sales have been, because like on Amazon KDP with print books, you get to see it as soon as they ship it out. It shows up as a sale. So it doesn't show up until it gets shipped out to your customer. But you do get to see where you're at, and you can kind of see like, oh, I'm going to have a royalty check this month. Okay, that's a little bit about the royalty rates. Now, the important thing to do is if you're not using something that a lot of people have used, like Amazon KDP or Ingram Spark, if you're going with something different, you really need to compare. You need to sit down and do some math and really understand. And if you don't understand, you need to ask questions, because understanding how you're getting paid and how it's calculated is very important for your bottom line. Now, I said I would come to KU, Kindle Unlimited. There are some exclusivity agreements that do affect your royalties, and you need to read the fine print on these as well. I have enrolled my ebooks when I first released them in Kindle Unlimited, or it's Amazon's KDP Select program. And this allows the book to be loaned out to people who subscribe to Kindle Unlimited. So they've paid a monthly fee, and then they can select from the books that are available in there. And then they basically are reading them for free because they've paid this flat fee. Now, as the author, I'm wondering, how do I get paid? Well, I get paid based on the number of pages they've read, and there's a way that Amazon calculates that with ebooks. So when I enroll my books in the KDP Select program, it's for 90 days at a time. And this is helpful because it helps to have some readers who wouldn't otherwise probably get my book get it. Because if they're paying to get Kindle Unlimited, a monthly subscription, they want to read the books that are available in there. They're not just going to go buy another ebook at full price. And so this helps me to get some exposure. It also allows me to do some special promotions and things where I can run it for free for a certain number of days in a month. And so when I do that, it does affect the royalties when I select that, but I weigh out royalties, exposure, all of those kinds of things in there. There are other exclusive deals, like some platforms or publishers give exclusivity in exchange for benefits like higher visibility and promotional opportunities. And so when you see those come up, if you're using something that isn't one of the mainstream self-publishing platforms, always read the fine print and work on understanding what that means. All right, so summing this up, when we think about royalties, when I talk about getting a royalty check and when a traditionally published author friend gets a royalty check, they are not the same thing. They are called the same thing, but they're not the same. For me, as a completely independent author, I'm just getting paid every month for the books that sell on Amazon. Something important to know, though, is that I also have a lot of my paperbacks are set up to sell on other platforms as well. And so if you do that through Amazon, you get that included in your royalty check. If you do it outside of Amazon, you get a separate royalty check for that. But there is no middle person when I'm doing this. I don't have an agent that's getting a cut. I don't have a publisher that's getting a cut because I am the publisher. Bottom line for me, this royalty structure allows me to look at how much it costs to produce a book, and I can earn back faster. When I published my first book, I kept track of my royalties, and I kept track of how much I had invested to get it published. I had paid for editing, cover design, interior layout, and it took me a couple of years in selling books. But once I had paid off that initial investment, everything that I earned in a royalty check was profit. And that's what I want for you too as an indie author, for you to be able to know that after this point, my book is paid off and it's all royalties from here. If you have questions about royalties, if you have questions about different structures, feel free to hop onto the chat that is connected to my Substack with Indie Author Blueprint, and I'm happy to discuss those things with you. I don't offer legal advice, but I definitely can point you toward resources. All right, I will be back next time, and I'm going to be talking about contracts. If you want other episodes of Indie Author Blueprint, or you want worksheets and all the extra bonus resources that I've created for you, you'll find those on Substack when you look for Indie Author Blueprint. I'm creating all kinds of printables for you and resources as you navigate this path of publishing your own books.